Hi, this is Laurie Mangold, and this is month 1 of the advanced program. And so my goal today is to show you the packet, what's in it, how to read it, and then refresh your memory on a couple of skills, and then it's an advanced block, so you'll be on your own. So the package is going to come like this. Looks very much like a $5 quilt package. The fabric, though, is much more substantial, as you can see, and it's going to be in here. Now, when you open it, I'm going to pull the instructions out. I just want to tell you that we did do a cutting video. So that is a separate video that you can go and watch, and I cut the whole block. When I open, it's 3 pages of instructions, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. So this is your cutting instructions, okay? And just like in $5 quilt, you're going to have what piece it is, okay? And then all the individual things you're going to cut. Now, when you see the numbers here, and there's only one number, essentially what you're cutting are squares, okay? Almost everything this month, everything is a square. So just know that when you start out. The colors are going to be colored to your program, so they will match the colors in your kit, okay? So there's your cutting sheet. These are your instructions. Now, in the instructions, there are links here. We have created a separate web page with all of the places you can go to get your skill builder videos and additional information. And so it's the same link. You'll go out there and hopefully you'll know what you're looking for. But I do want to point out that I'm going to read the first one to you. Make 8 half-square triangle blocks using 4 4-inch opal and 4-inch light squares. Trim these to 3.5 unfinished. See skill builder video and skill page at, and then there's the website. It is an advanced program. I'm not going to spend pages and pages telling you how to do things like that. So you'll get a basic instruction, and if there's additional information, you'll be able to go out and find that information. Now down below is the 3 things that you have to make 3 sets of flying geese. Now, as a reminder, we did a big video on flying geese. This is what a flying goose block looks like. This is the goose, this is the sky. All of these instructions that you get in your kit are going to assume you are going to use the Eleanor Burns ruler, okay? So this is what the ruler looks like. It is the small ruler. We're going to be using this 3x6 finished, okay? And the instructions on how to use it are in it. But we also did a skill video on how to use it. Many of you have been in $5 quilt for a while, probably already have this ruler. If you don't have the ruler, it is available for sale here at the store with the standard $5 quilt discount. It's also on the website that you can purchase on the website, okay? There is another method you can use called the no waste method. On this website, there will be a page for how you would change the cutting instructions to accommodate that, and we also did a skill video on doing it that way. Okay, so you're going to make lots of flying geese, not only in this block, but in lots of the blocks coming up in here. So this is something you want to get good at, and I highly recommend this method because it really is forgiving. So if you don't sew perfectly or something goes wrong, you usually have plenty enough to trim off that you can still end up with a perfect flying goose block. So that's the Eleanor Burns method. Now, the only downside to her ruler is that it's very slippery, and when you trim the block, you're going to go all the way around it. So we also recommend that you use one of the no-slip dots that you can put on the back of the ruler. These are little sandpaper dots, and these are clear ones. They're called true cut grips. So something to think about if you don't have the ruler, and if you do have the ruler and you don't have anything on the back of it, you may want to get some of those, okay? Then, once you get to the 3rd page, don't be intimidated by this. I want to see, yeah. This is the how to assemble all the piece parts and what direction to press your seams. It looks intimidating, but I'm going to show you here behind me in a minute how it goes together. And it really, if you just lay out all the piece parts and then sew it row by row, you will find that it will go together pretty easily. This block finishes at 24 inches. It's actually at this point 24 and a half, okay? So this one is the speckled, and then this one, which I adore, is the bright one, is Tula, so I can hold the whole thing up because this one is put completely together. So you can see the size of it. It's not insignificant in size, but it's super pretty. So the first thing that I want to show you is that when I get all of, the first thing you're going to do is make the flying geese blocks, which are all of these using the Eleanor Burns method. And then you're going to make the half square triangle blocks, which are these blocks right here, okay, if you remember what a half square triangle is. Once you have those made, there's also lots of blocks that aren't pieced. You're going to just lay it out, because I'm telling you, it's really easy to get these things twisted in the wrong direction. I finished the Tula one, and I'm standing there looking at it going, there's just something off. And then all of a sudden I spotted that I had not put these, one of these was twisted wrong, and it just set the whole thing off. So it's real important just to lay out each one, okay? Now, I made the center, which is the 6.5 inch width, and then I worked out from there, because each one of these is a mirror image or a copy of the one above it, so it made it easy to lay it out, okay? Now, half square triangles, just quickly, I had you cut them at 4 inches, okay? And if you remember, there's a skill video, you put them right sides together, draw a line, and you can see I sewed a 1/4 inch on each side of that line. Then you're going to cut it apart on that line. And let me do that real quickly. I have a new rotary cutter, so if I cut my finger, ooh, that was good. Always should close it. And you're going to get 2 of these triangles. Michelle's got it pointed down, right? And we need to press this, and I always press towards the dark. You don't have to follow me, Michelle. I'm just going to press that open so I can show how to trim it. Okay? Now, the reason we cut them at 4, because the formula says that we should cut them at 3 7/8, is so that we can get a perfect square. Because that way I don't have to be super careful how I press it, and I can just kind of run my iron over it. But I wanted to review the trimming with you, because it is supposed to measure at this point 3.5 inches. So what I like to do, go one more, Laurie, this way, and turn it this way. As I find my 3.5 and my 3.5 mark. The critical thing about trimming a half square triangle is that you keep this diagonal line on that seam. If you don't, you will trim more off of one side than the other, and your block will not go in properly. Notice on my first trim, I have the 3.5 inches inside of the block, because I want to trim something off of all 4 sides. So I have that on the seam, I have a little bit on both sides open, and I'm going to cut one side, and I'm going to cut the other. Notice that I sweep away the edges so that I can, so that I know it's cut before I move my ruler. Now I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to turn it around, and now I'm going to line the 3.5 inch up perfectly on the outside. So I've got 3.5, 3.5, and the diagonal on the seam. When I get all of those in the right place, I'm not used to this yet. This one and this one, sweep that away, and now I have a perfect half square triangle that I've trimmed all 4 sides. You can see the waist is not much because we only added 1/8 of an inch extra all the way around. And that's perfectly square and ready to go into the block. With so many of these pieces, you want to make sure all the pieces measure accurately, okay? So you're going to make a bunch of those in different colors too, and you'll have the instructions for that. So the next thing I want to show you is after you have everything laid out, you're going to sew your rows together. Okay, so this is one of the rows that I've sewn together. I used the way I determined which way to press was I made the center and I pressed those, and then I worked my way out to go in opposite directions. There is a couple of places, where is it, that you can see that I pressed these seams open. When you've got two flying geese points coming together, it's really hard to press that to one side because it's so bulky. So if you feel you need to, some of these places where it's really bulky, you can certainly press your seams open. I also want to show you up here, because I had two going here. I pressed this whole seam here open. This I was able to press to one side. So you need to make your best judgments on which way you want to press when you're sewing the rows together, which direction you want to press them, okay? Now the last thing I want to show you is, and I preach about this all the time, is that when you go to sew this row on, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 match points, okay? Remember what I always say, pin your match points first, because if you don't, you will never get everything lined up. So I always start again in the middle, and I get those two right there. And you notice how I'm squeezing until I get it to lay flat and those two lock next to each other. I'll pick it up and check it, and I'm just going to pin this whole row on so that you can see how I pin it. And then I'm going to check this one next. And I'm going to pin, and usually I like to pin on both sides, especially because you don't know, like this one, if I don't pin on this side, when I go over it, it's probably going to flip over. And then my last one, that one is pinned open, so it doesn't matter which direction this seam goes, but this is a little tricky when one is open and one is not, because you got to line the seam up with the pressed open seam. But I'm going to press that. Notice the direction I'm pinning, because I like to use my 1/4 inch foot with a guide. And so if I pin this way, the pins aren't in the way of the guide. And I'm going to pin this one. And then I'm going to come and pin this one. And you have to do this for, row by row. And if you work out from the middle, it just, because you'll be sewing in different directions, the block will lay flatter. You won't be sewing all in one direction and pulling it in that direction. Okay, and then I do come line up my ends, because they like to twist and turn as you're sewing. And then I come over here and I make sure this one's lined up. Okay. All right. So, you want me to hold it up, or you want to keep looking down? So I have all my seams. I even will come back and just pop one in there in the middle to make sure that spreads out a little bit. And now I'm going to sew that seam. And I'm going to do that with every row. I'm going to sew this one, I'm going to press it, and I would just keep working row to row back and forth. I wanted to have half of it done. I'm not happy right here. I have a little poof going on. I'm probably going to go in and unsew that and see if I can reduce that poof a little bit. But you can see that if you pin every row, you will be good to go, and you'll be matching all of your seams. Okay, so this is pretty challenging. Nothing you haven't done. You've done, if you've been in the program for a while, you've done flying geese, you've done 1/4 square triangles, but there's a lot of pieces. Half square triangles, sorry. There's a lot of pieces here, and remember we talked about pressing to one side. I feel pretty happy. Mine came out almost exactly 24.5 inches. So I did something right on the first one. All right, so that is the advanced block. If you have any questions, you can call the store. Take your time, don't try to do it all in one sitting. Work your way through it, and you'll be very successful.